Radio.
Hello and welcome to Cryptocurrent, the only podcast to bring you beginner and advanced knowledge of cryptocurrency and blockchain, analyses of cryptocurrency markets, and discussions on growing a business within the crypto space. Stay tuned and stay cryptocurrent.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cryptocurrent. Your host here, Richard Carthon. And I'm excited today to bring on a very special guest who I met recently down in New Orleans. He was in town for the New Orleans Entrepreneur Week. We were actually on a panel together, basically talking about the future of blockchain and how it can be applied in real life. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest with TCL Ventures, Zhao.
Hey, Richard.
Very happy and excited to get you on the show. I know you have like a ton of different experiences and you're just working on so many unique things that I think it'd be awesome for you to just share a little bit of that with our audience. So for a first question for you today, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and give us some background.
Yeah, for sure, Richard. So I came from a background that's a bit strange and unique in the way that I was born in China and grew up there, but really thinking about, I want to figure out what's out there, right? What's different than, what I was used to growing up. The opportunity to look at some schools in the West, including US, and I was applying to some schools in UK as well, but really ended up finding myself in New Orleans after I decided to study abroad. It's funny that New Orleans was the first city that I get into the US because I thought, man, this is what American is like, right? And but it turned out New Orleans is the most fun place that I have ever been. So that continued to be the case.
Absolutely.
So it's always fun to visit back town and seeing some old friends. So my career path is fairly straightforward, but a lot of random dots as well. So I started my career as an entrepreneur. I started a company, kind of running the whole thing from fundraising to recruiting the team and to building up the team and to building up the operation. It was a really tough journey, and now that I am investor, it kind of gives me the advantage of empathizing with what entrepreneurs have to go through when trying to build something from nothing. So I have been a venture investor for the past almost 10 years now, mostly focused on early stage technology investments. And I'm based in Silicon Valley, so a lot of tech companies here. But I also invest, globally as well. So I make a trip to China, to Israel. That's where we have other investment portfolio as well. So that's kind of like the brief background.
That's awesome. It's quite the background. You've had your fair share of traveling and living in various different areas while also getting to work with a various amount of different businesses. And with that, I'm sure you have a ton of knowledge just across all kinds of different industries. And with that, I know that you have some companies in your portfolio that have to deal with both cryptocurrency and blockchain. So give us a little bit of information on like what got you into cryptocurrency and blockchain.
Yeah, for sure. It dated back, let's say 2012. That's when I first got to understand blockchain and Bitcoin. That was the time, man, I should have got more Bitcoin at the time. It was like below like $7, $8.
Wow.
Bitcoin at the time. It was interesting because now, looking back, right, like that was, it was so obvious, right? Like, people will get into Bitcoin, people will buy Bitcoin, people will hold that as store of value. But I think most people forget how controversial the Bitcoin was at the time. Back in 2012, I was actually studying the whole blockchain crypto space on behalf of a venture firm. right? Because as emerging technology, Bitcoin represent this type of new thing. VCs try to understand better, and a good way to understand anything new is to just try yourself. I mean, at the time, Bitcoin was about like, I think was trading at this kind of magic card place, right, in Japan, right? Oh, Magic the Gathering, right? That's the exchange people are using, and then of course a lot of horrible things happen on that exchange. But that was the infrastructure at the time, and at the time, Coinbase just got started as a startup. I think they only raised Series A at the time.
Wow.
At the time, it's like, hey, how can we get our hands to this Bitcoin thing and just play around? And I remember that the standard approach at the time is to go to one of the exchange on the website, and it will give you their routing number and account number, and
Right.
then you're supposed to go to this, like I actually went to this shady MoneyGram location. You call the number and say, hey, yes, I do want to transfer a few $100s into this bank account that I have no idea, who it belong to, and hoping that, they will send you Bitcoin afterwards. So that was fun. And I did that. I got my first batch of Bitcoin, and, which, looking back is like, it's quite experience. But at the same time, the general consensus in the Valley, in the investment world, is that Bitcoin is new, it's fun, but it's also dangerous, right? Because a lot of this dark web, there was a lot of dark web use case, Silk Road and all of that. So a lot of people don't want to touch it. They don't want to be associated with it. But anyway, I got into the blockchain and crypto space just by playing with it. And fortunately, after that experience, I was like, hey, this is actually not too bad. And by holding the Bitcoin yourself, I still remember I have that, the Bitcoin client downloaded on my computer, kind of running the node that it just like, my computer was not that advanced at the time. So it kind of slowed down everything because it had to sync up with the whole blockchain, whole ledger. But, it kind of gave me the sense that, man, nobody can take away these few Bitcoin that I have. And the idea of this kind of decentralized ledger is quite powerful. But then obviously Bitcoin is slow and you cannot build smart contract, or you cannot program it. That kind of leaves the opportunity and opening for Ethereum, which I think they visit the Silicon Valley in 2013. And I had the fortune to meet with Vitalik and the team early on. But that's kind of different story. But that's kind of how I got to know the blockchain space.
Yeah, and I mean, even with your story, you've gotten to meet quite a few. I mean, you got into the game very early, and because of your being in the VC world, as you said, and looking at new opportunities, you were always, you're constantly looking for the new opportunities. The fact that you were getting to see opportunities such as Coinbase back when they first started, I mean, I bet people would love to have been part of that first fundraise now, just looking back, you just never really know with looking at some of these different opportunities that are out there. But, you've talked a little bit about your venture and different ways that you got involved in the cryptocurrency and blockchain. But, tell us a little bit about TCL Ventures and like what is your fund and like how did you get involved with the company?
Yeah, so I have been a professional venture investor for the past 9 years or so, and so it's always investing in U.S. companies. So TCL Ventures come as the interesting opportunity where the fund's mandate is to, one, still continue to invest in technology companies, and two, but really have a global view of investing in U.S., in Asia, and also in Israel. So it kind of gave me the scope of looking at tech innovation in different parts of the world, where we can have a broader view and we can compare notes on some emerging techs. The fund is structured just like a venture capital fund. There is nothing different in terms of the structure, in terms of the mandate. we invest because we believe in the company and we want to help build the company. The reason it's a little bit unique that we have one of the major LP is from TCL Corporation, which is a publicly traded company based in Hong Kong, where TCL has a similar product line like Samsung. Has manufacturers, has has TV units, has mobile phone units. So it's a company that has been around for a good 30, 40 years. So one of the incentive for the LP is to understand better what's out there and what could have a long-term impact for the business. So along with that, right, blockchain is one of the areas that TCL Corporation has been fairly interested in, because not only look at blockchain, right? A lot of people talk about the cryptocurrency that's more immediate and more material to have and to see, because you have a dollar sign that hang along with it. But in terms of more traditional enterprise companies, they're thinking more about how, what does the decentralized ledger mean, and how can blockchain effectively replace or complement to some of the database technology that they use in terms of logistics, workflow, and manufacture. I think that's something we're taking a long-term view. We've seen some companies doing that, but I think but once it happens, it's definitely going to have a very meaningful impact to a lot of traditional business that we're seeing today.
Definitely. And with that, back even, while we're having our panel discussion, there's a question that I asked that I'm going to ask again now. And I think you answered it very beautifully. But, what, as your firm, your TCL Ventures, what are some different things that y'all are doing to address advancing innovations in blockchain and cryptocurrency?
I wouldn't say we are advancing the innovation in blockchain. And I think our job is to be supportive to entrepreneurs who are doing that, right? They are really at the front and center of this innovation wave. So for us at a VC firm, what we're doing and what we can do is to be a helpful bridge between innovations, startups, and companies, large incumbent companies who are willing and eager to try out innovations. So, what that means is that, if we find a company that's interesting and we invest in the company, we'll make customers introductions, we'll help them to build use case of the technology, of all of the applications that they have built. And that's, I think from our side, that's what we can do. I mean, on top of that, there are obvious things, which is, try to build a community around yourself. Like pretty much like what you're doing, kind of having a good sense of what's up and coming of this space and of this market,
right.
So that one, you can speak intelligently about the technology, and two, you know what's happening so that you can best assist your entrepreneurs when they need it.
Most definitely. With that, I know that between the research that you do and just getting to engage with a couple of different companies that are in the space, I'm sure that you've had a lot of things come across your desk or that you've gotten to meet that have really sparked your curiosities, like whether it's a cryptocurrency or a blockchain project. What is something recently that you've either read up on or that you're just interested in that has had your attention?
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting time in the blockchain space now, because if we look at a year, look at last year or a year ago, it was much more noisy with all the companies going ICO, with all the different type of crazy stuff happening.
Right.
Just a lot of noise. I think the past year, the fact that the cryptocurrency market has been rather calm is actually a good thing for the ecosystem for the long term. Having said that, I will list out a few companies that I get involved, on a personal level and also on the fund level through different point of time. So obviously with Bitcoin and Ethereum, that was like much early on, like 2012 and 2013. That was like the beginning of kind of really the dawn of the cryptocurrency of blockchain space. And then quickly after that, I think around 2013, 2014, that's when, especially after Ethereum did the first crowd sale, that's when VC firms start to take more serious look at the space and trying to play some early bets. So around that time, so my fund invested in an early stage company called BlockCypher,
Okay.
BlockCypher, BlockCypher. So what they were trying to build and is still building is this API for blockchain transactions. Think of it like AWS for blockchain, if you will. So right now, Coinbase is using their backend API. When you send a transaction and you're trying to figure out where that transaction is at, Bitcoin blockchain or Ethereum blockchain or whatnot, you can use BlockCypher's API to look it up. So that company was quite interesting. At its vintage. The thesis was that if the blockchain, if the whole Bitcoin crypto space is going to blow up, with a lot of companies with a lot of companies being built in the space, you will need an API tool like this, right, to enable a faster transaction and just you would need a tool like Stripe, or AWS, if you will.
Right.
So that company has been around, has been doing really well. And the funny thing is that because of the crypto currency has increased value so much compared to 2014, the company is actually profitable and sustainable on its own without the need to raise outside funding. So it's quite an interesting case that you don't really see a lot of early stage companies can do that.
Yeah, that is a very strong point. Like, I mean, you look at a lot of these companies that are that are IPOing right now, right? So you're looking at Lyft, you're looking at some of these other companies, and they're even Uber. They're still not profitable, but people are pouring billions and billions and billions of dollars on it with a outlook that eventually they will become profitable and the money will like turn around. But you're looking at some of these companies who earlier, going back to 2014 to now, that's only 5 years. In 5 years, you're to profitability. That's a unicorn level.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very interesting. I think with the whole blockchain companies, crypto companies, it just not only the technology is fundamentally different than a lot of these kind of web and mobile companies that VCs has been backing are used to seeing, but I think with whole decentralized structure, how the token can play an incentive in these blockchain companies, they actually represent a different type of dynamic and sort of like a paradigm shift. You can see a new type of companies being created that might not be the typical Uber or typical Lyft type of story. I think the capital side is just trying to figure out a way to evaluate properly. But it is very interesting thing that we're seeing coming from the blockchain space.
Absolutely. And even on that note of one of the companies that you're involved with BlockCypher and seeing its progress and everything that's going on, you brought up a good point from 2018 to 2019. Just, it was very noisy 2018. It's kind of calmed down a lot in 2019. But what we're seeing are the companies that are around, they are becoming, I would say, more powerful in the sense that they're building really good infrastructure and they're building things that are built to last and not to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what is something in the horizon that you're kind of looking out for as 2019 continues to shape out and into the future?
Yeah, so this is a good, good question connecting to the previous one they asked. I would say, a good analogy that you and I talked about is, whenever there is a new technology, emerging new tech platform, you always have this kind of waves, right? Like the up and down. I mean, very similar to the dot com boom.
Mm-hmm.
In the late 90s, people go crazy because the market got excited by the promise of what internet can do, and the capital market went crazy, and therefore suffer the consequences because of it. Very similar dynamic with all the ICO that was taking place 2 years and 1 year ago. A lot of money went into it, and as you can see, a lot of projects are just simply was simply not worth backing. Right? Trying to make a quick buck, and they just went away quickly as well. But what's remained, and entrepreneurs who remained after the crash, after the burst, will be the one to become the next Amazon, next Google, and next Facebook in the blockchain space. And so we pay a lot of attention to that. And then if we use that framework and we look at the blockchain space again, you have big guys, Coinbase, started like very early. Frankly, given how much capital that they have raised now, the company is not going anywhere. So they will continue to be around. There will always be a need for a centralized exchange place for new users to go to and to use the service. So that part, easy to understand. That company's not going away, and they were smart enough to raise enough capital to survive the winter, and they will continue to be around. But what I'm interested in is to see, okay, so now we went through the first kind of correction, first up and down. Now what's going to happen is, are we ready? Well, two things. Are we ready to see a lot of infrastructure type of company, the next generation of infrastructure type of companies, to enable the next Facebook to be born? Or do we can we identify the next like concrete applications, just like the blockchain blockchain type of Facebook or Twitter, that's already have the mature condition to be taken to the mainstream? All
Right.
kind of both are happening at the same time. So my conclusion is that probably the first category will be the more appropriate space to make investment. And I'll give you one quick example. So another company, another company or project I'm a small investor in is called Origin, Origin. It's a really cool company, very cool stuff that they're building. So if you're listening to this, you should probably check it out. The team, super resilient. They are from the early team members from YouTube. One of the co-founder, Matt, he is just brilliant. He's really smart, thinking about, how can we build a decentralized blockchain or decentralized module to enable the next marketplace, like the next Airbnb, next Uber, or next Lyft, or whatever.
Okay.
If you think about it, I mean, a decentralized blockchain or decentralized ledger is a perfect infrastructure for applications like marketplace. When you have a centralized marketplace, it's actually not the most efficient way, because a lot of the price that you pay as a consumer actually goes towards the centralized entity. In this case, it's Uber, is Airbnb, is Lyft, right? But if you can figure out, if you can use a decentralized module or decentralized technology to facilitate these transactions, either it's calling a car, or either is finding the apartment to rent. If you can just do that in a decentralized way, you actually increase the efficiency and therefore reduce the cost of the transaction. So anyway, Origin, they are doing that. They are building the infrastructure and different decentralized module for marketplace, for next generation of marketplace. I think something like that are quite exciting. There are some other initiatives that are taking place, but for me, my personal preference and conclusion is that we probably need more of these infrastructure type of companies that are not just like deep in tech and out of touch of reality, but actually building a tool as easy as Stripe. Right, a Stripe is super easy to use. You grab a line of code, and boom, you can start to accept payment, credit card payments. We need something like that in the blockchain space.
And I don't think we're too far away from that. And thank you for elaborating on that question. And you brought up a ton of great points. And I also am very bullish on infrastructure as things are being built. A lot of these cryptocurrency projects are being called cryptocurrencies. A lot of them aren't. They're a platform. They're, the way I look at Ethereum is a platform, as well as some of these other quote unquote cryptocurrencies that are out there. They're blockchain infrastructural entities. With other things being built on top of them. And I do think that the more resources that are built on building this infrastructure, and you just have so much on top of it, it's going to be huge. The way I look at it is like the coding languages, like the Javas and the Swifts and all that kind of stuff. You have the languages that are made, and then you just can spin off all kinds of different things in relation to that.
Yep. So that's exactly right.
And so I definitely appreciate that. But Jay, wow, you have dropped so much just knowledge on us and just different things to think about. And I really do appreciate your time. And I always ask my speakers before we wind down the conversation of what is one final thought that you want to leave with all of our listeners today?
So let's see. So I think it's fair to say that your listeners are definitely curious about the blockchain space and cryptocurrency in general. So one thing and one question I always got is that people always ask, "Hey, am I too late? Right? Is this blockchain or cryptocurrency thing over? Right? Is this the right time?" So my answer is that it's never too late, but it's really whether you want to get involved as a cryptocurrency trader or as an entrepreneur, as a builder, or as an investor even, you really have to kind of get to know the space and kind of get to know the product really well. And the best way to do it is to play with it, right? To try to just get your first cryptocurrency, get your first Ethereum, or get your first Bitcoin. And obviously try out Origin. Origin is it's publicly launched, and go to the website. They giving away, I think, early tokens as well. So just to play around with it, so that you can get a more intuitive understanding of what blockchain is, so that it's not such a abstract concept. So that's important. And two, again, to kind of looking back at the time frame and history, right? Like in 2012, like people think it's just crazy that Bitcoin will get to $100, and then Bitcoin will get to $100. There's no way Bitcoin can get to $1,000. That's
right.
insane. And then when Bitcoin get to $1,000, it's like Bitcoin get to $10,000. Even though, right, like Bitcoin is at 5,000 or 6,000 roughly these days, I think it's still remarkable. Like just, not too long ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, there's no way people can believe or willing to believe that, you can actually see these things, these intangible thing as store of value. And indeed that happened. So so this is when it really comes down to the conviction of each individual, right? If you believe that blockchain is going to be the next emerging tech platform, just like internet, just like mobile internet, it has a lot of potential. It has a lot of things that it need to unfold, right, to create value. And if you take that framework and take that lens of view, then you're not too late at all. Like we're actually just getting started, right? Because a lot of interesting and exciting applications are being built. So that's probably the last thought that I will leave with the audience to think about.
All awesome stuff and extremely valuable in the sense of everyone should constantly be educating themselves, just get more involved. It's never too late. As you said, you have not missed the wave. I still think we're on the early adoption side of the bell curve. So even in the first movers, getting towards the ends of the first movers, now towards the early adopters. And there's just so much opportunity in this space. So thank you so much for that final thought. And
thank you.
Yeah, man. And for all the information you gave us today. So Jay, what are some different ways that people can either connect with you or with TCL Ventures?
So I have a Twitter account. It's Zhao S, JZHAOS. You can follow me there. And from there you have my blog, and I sometimes will blog out some random stuff about investments and China and blockchain stuff. So if people are interested, definitely can look me up and chat with me for sure.
Absolutely. I'll make sure I'll put that in the show notes as well. But again, Jay Zhao, thank you so much for joining me all the way from Silicon Valley. Great seeing you down in New Orleans. Man, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure people are going to get a ton of awesome value from our conversation today.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Richard.
Of course, man. We'll appreciate you, and everyone, stay cryptocurrent.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of Cryptocurrent. For more information on this episode and all of our episodes, please visit us at www.crypto-current.co. Stay up to date with the latest news in cryptocurrency by signing up for our newsletter. You will receive a daily email Monday through Sunday that is personalized and curated content specific to you and your interest, powered by artificial intelligence. Are you an accredited investor looking to invest in cryptocurrency? Crescent City Capital can help. Go to crescentcitycapital.com for more information. Hello, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the quality of this podcast. I can only thank my amazing producer, Andrew DeRitter, with DeRitter Productions, who has put this together. If you have any podcast, visual, or video needs, please go to DeRitterProductions.com. That's DERITTER Productions.com.
This has been another episode of Cryptocurrent, bringing you one step closer to becoming a crypto and blockchain aficionado. We look forward to giving you the latest in crypto news and analyses next week. Stay cryptocurrent.
Please use available exits now.